This is a very special episode of the Encounter Faith podcast. My name is Ross, and I have the privilege of hosting these conversations. And today, I am sitting with the mayor of Naperville, Scott Wehrli. Scott, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Ross. It's a delight to be here. And when we get to talk about Naperville, that's what makes my day.
Yes, I think what happened is you just knew a conversation around Naperville was happening, and you just appeared. That's just kind of
That's the way it works.
Yeah, exactly. But in all sincerity, you've been the mayor of Naperville almost 3 years now. And I'm just curious, like, when you look at 3 years of being mayor, what have been some of the highlights? Like, how do you describe what we're like when you're in a situation where folks aren't familiar with Naperville?
Sure. Well, I think the highlight for me is, as someone who grew up here and lived in Naperville all my life, I thought I knew this community like the back of my hand.
Sure.
But in this new role, and even during the campaign, I got to meet so many new people from so many different places and backgrounds. And I think that's what is so fun in this particular job now is I continue to meet amazing people who are Napervillians first and foremost, but they are unique in their own ways, right? So different cultures representing different places from around the world, amazing credentials. I mean, think about it. Over a third of our residents have advanced degrees, and Naperville does really attract the best and the brightest.
100%. I've been in this community for my entire life as well. And one of the things that I was so grateful for you guys saying yes to this was because we here at Good Shepherd, we talk about being for our neighbors. We talk about being a place in the community. We talk about how everyone can belong here. We want to invite everyone. And I would imagine there's a lot of similarities between how you see the Naperville community and the community that we're trying to be a part of. Right. But I'm curious for you, how do you define a healthy community? This has been true for your whole life. How do you put words to this thing that's been in the water for you?
Well, I think defining a healthy community is a very difficult thing. However, the healthy community I see is one that is a safe place.
Sure.
It's a great place that people want to raise their families. It's a place where there's a thriving local economy, and the burden of taxation and all these different things don't drive you out of your home or make you concerned about how you're going to pay your bill next month.
Right.
So we have to have an environment that supports its residents in that way, but also recognizes that there's no such thing as a perfect place.
Yep.
So we have to be prepared for people who face mental health challenges or health challenges. And I think that's what really kind of makes a community great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious about surprises. You're someone who's been here in this community your entire life. And you said, you thought you knew everybody, or you thought you knew what we were about. And then you experienced such a larger, I'll use the word diversity to what you're describing. But what has surprised you the most about holding the office relative to the job you thought you were applying for?
Sure. So the Naperville mayor is technically a part-time job. And when you have a council manager form of government, which is what we fall under, the city manager is technically the equivalent of a CEO if we were going to use corporate titles, right?
Sure.
And the mayor is arguably the chairman of the board.
Sure.
And the board of directors would be the city council. So I think in the role of working as the direct connection as the mayor in that chairman of the board role with our CEO, the city manager, we've developed a really great relationship over that time. And we also got to explore how the depth chart of our city management team is so amazing. I mean, that was a surprise to me. I knew a lot of the city directors just being around city officials over the years. But when I got into the different departments and got to meet the people who were being basically coached into potential advancement roles within their departments, I was just really in awe for the quality of the employees that we have working in support of the city.
Yeah.
And when we get tested, right, when that storm comes, like we just had a couple of weeks ago, we had a major storm. And when you see those groups come together through different departments, everything from the police department, fire department, our public works, our electric crews, our water and wastewater crews, they come together in a situation like that you've got 90 intersections blocked with trees down or multiple power outages and fire and ambulance responses, police calls backed up, how they work together in those crisis scenarios without any sort of sweat or panic. I mean, they manage these scenarios really well. So it makes me really proud to work with a team like that. And
sure.
And I think they appreciate us being so interested and committed to making sure government is efficient.
Yeah.
To deliver those services.
For sure. And I love that you share that, because that's such a unique part of your seat, but it's clearly something that you're choosing to participate in and lean further into because of the fact that you know that those guys are going to appreciate it. I want to kind of call out, some of you who listen to this podcast on a regular basis, you might be going, why are you talking to the mayor of Naperville? And I want to get to some of the ways in which an institution like Good Shepherd can support the type of community building that you're describing. Mm-hmm. But before we even get there, just a little bit broader, you're a person of faith. Can you, as we sit here at Good Shepherd Church, can you share a little bit just about your own faith background?
Sure. So I was baptized Catholic as a child. I was actually adopted through Catholic Charities as a little guy.
Yeah.
And brought to this wonderful place called Naperville, Illinois by two loving parents. Mm. My mom was Methodist. My dad was Catholic. And she actually, after I was baptized Catholic, she took me with her to the Methodist Church for many, many years. And then ultimately, I went through Catholic confirmation. I think I was about 13 years old.
Sure.
So a little later on in life. And was not necessarily too motivated about really pursuing much of what I would call a faith journey at that particular stage in my life. It wasn't until I think we got married. I have a wife now of 28 years and two children, a 21-year-old or a 25-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. It was about that time where I kind of discovered, wow, this faith thing is kind of important, but still it wasn't where it needed to be in my deck of cards.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Fast forward to a time where my son decided to go to a Catholic all-boys school in Aurora for high school.
Okay.
And then a few years later, my daughter decided to go to the Catholic all-girls school in Aurora for her high school education. I got invited to a retreat from my son's school, and it was a retreat called Kairos. And over that 4 or 5 days with a bunch of senior high school boys, and then me as a trustee from the board of directors for the school, and some other adults who were going through as candidates in the class, it kind of reignited my faith journey at a time where I was really struggling.
Yeah.
And that was right after the recession had happened. My business went through all sorts of challenges, lots of layoffs and things, and the company that I run with the family. But it woke me up as to what was really important in the end.
Yeah.
And when I exited that journey, I found my wife and kids were the card that suddenly ended up on the top of that deck. And over the course of all these struggles that we go through, where you're trying to save the company and you're dealing with all these potential layoffs and all the tough decisions as being a business owner at that particular time in my life, I would come home and I wouldn't have a conversation with my family. I mean, I would just sit there at dinner.
Sure.
And the way that was interpreted from them, like, what's wrong with Dad?
Yep.
Why isn't he talking to us? Is he not interested? Is he not listening? What's on his mind? And I tried to avoid bringing my work stress into the home. And by doing that, it was being interpreted that I just didn't care about them.
Of course. So
that retreat really kind of woke me up. And I think that's, since then, regularly attending Mass at the Catholic Church with my family on Saturday nights is it's a commitment, but it's also that reaffirmation of why we have to put faith at the top of our list.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
I think there's so many parts of your story that I think resonate with so many people. I think about having a robust experience as a child. Let's be real. As you were describing this earlier, you heard a bunch of youth pastors and youth leaders agreeing as someone who wasn't quite committed to that faith milestone at the time. That's the story that a lot of those guys have to navigate, and having an experience of having a family and realizing that there's some priorities that are out of whack. I went through that career-wise. I went through that faith-wise. And I know that so many folks who listen, there's parts of that sound like them. And one of the things that I think is intriguing to me about that, people in your position or positions like yours, it can sometimes feel there can be a distance that folks put between you and them. Mm-hmm. But to connect what we've already discussed, how is being a person of faith? Because throughout your life, even as any seasons happen, you've always been a person of faith. How has that helped you lead as a mayor?
I think being humble, I mean, faith humbles you, right? I mean, it brings you to your knees.
100%.
And when that happens, when you're in a role like this, I mean, people say, "Oh, that's the mayor." I'm a regular guy who's got an amazing job.
Sure.
And
that's beautiful. Yeah.
That's what's the reminder I have every morning when I get up. So when I go out and meet with people in the community, or when I'm sitting in mass at my church, and there's kids that turn around and they're pointing because they recognize that's the mayor sitting behind us, or whatever the case.
Which I imagine your kids love. I imagine that happens.
Oh yeah. My daughter reminds me so much of how she loves me getting recognized in different places, and just gets mortified because of course, the attention. But there's this responsibility that goes along with it, where you need to make sure that you spend as much time with members of the community as you possibly can, and let them know that they've been heard, and that you understand where they're coming from, and you actually engage and actively listen to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes along with being a person of faith, that we have to listen to each other, and we need to listen to each other. Because if you're not heard, and if you think you're calling out to not be heard by anyone, then it's really difficult to navigate your faith journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well said. I think it's important for folks, even if you're not a person of faith, one of the things that I hear you describing is how it helps you live to the ideals of our faith. Mm-hmm. The facts that helping show up for people, being there, listening to them. Around here, we talk about that of, inviting everybody and walking together. But ultimately, that is, even though that is our mission, it's something we fall short of every single day. Right. But the effort that I hear you applying there, the effort that we try to apply here at Good Shepherd, I think is just really encouraging for people. You've talked about your family. You've talked about kids particularly. And I know that the youth of Naperville is a particular, I'll say a particularly important area of focus for you.
Sure.
And I want to kind of bring in some pretty local context here. Not that everyone listens is from Naperville, certainly, but I think it's helpful for folks who hear this to understand how you're looking at the next generation and ways that can help influence how we and organizations like us do the same. To use one example, you've talked about how there have been these gatherings in downtown Naperville that have been concerning. They've been referred to sometimes as teen takeovers. Right. For context, can you help people understand a little bit about what those was? But I want to particularly lean into what kind of support from Good Shepherd, from other religious institutions, is most helpful to address concerns like a teen gathering?
Sure. So teen takeover, it's a relatively recent trend that's been triggered from social media apps. Mm-hmm. And all it takes is one person to get on a social media site and publish that we're going to meet up in, let's say, downtown Naperville at 6:00 p.m. on Friday night. Mm-hmm. And we're going to party in the street. Mm-hmm. Let's post that message. And now it's going to go out to potentially thousands of followers from all over Chicagoland, and see what happens on Friday night. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's basically what a teen takeover starts as. And in some cases, those thousands of followers actually show up.
Yeah.
So in the case of Naperville, we are very cognizant of the potential for challenges with the teen takeover trends. Our police department and actually the community participate in saying, hey, I saw this on the internet. We want to make sure the police department, is aware of it. That's very, very helpful to us, because sometimes we do not get all that intel when we are trying to get out ahead of these things.
And exactly. Right. They're so spontaneous. You need to be proactive.
So we put extra staffing and provide as many resources as we possibly can to make sure there's a presence there and that everybody's going to be safe. Right.
Sure.
I mean, that's our job, is to protect.
Yep.
It's not to prevent people from coming in to enjoy our downtown and we'll take a walk on the Riverwalk like I did when I was a kid, or go out and buy ice cream. Right. I mean, we want people to be able to do that, but we don't want people to come in and just commit crimes for the sake of putting themselves on the internet and seeing how many clicks they can get.
Yep.
So I think it's very important for especially parents to understand what your kids are doing and where they plan on going and what types of events might be getting planned. I think there are going to be some parents who are shocked when police come knock at their door someday and say, did you know your child just posted this teen takeover event and it caused 5 arrests in a community?
Yeah.
And that's something nobody wants to have happen, right? But that's the reality of what is happening. And it's not just a Naperville thing. This is happening all over the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
There has been several of these incidences in different communities throughout, everything from Chicago into the suburbs, pool takeovers, you name it. But bottom line is, we want kids to have a wonderful life as teenagers and as young people, but we have to make sure that there's a safe environment for them to do so.
Yeah.
And the dangers of social media with doing things for the sake of putting something outrageous on the internet just for clicks and likes and notoriety, that's where it gets really tough.
Yeah, there's real world consequences.
Yes, for sure.
One of the things I'm curious about is, I think about some of the kids that I've met here at Good Shepherd who are involved in our robust programming for kids, middle school students, high school students. And I think there's also this opportunity for an organization like ours to help those kids know how to talk to their friends about it.
Right.
Because for every kid who takes part in a teen takeover, there's 4, 5, 6 kids who heard about it and didn't. What I'm curious about is, from an organization like ours, who cares about the next generation, who wants like you said, for these students and these kids to be able to thrive and flourish in Naperville. I'm someone who I was raised here, and now I'm raising my own family here. What is the right way? I know it's not quite binary, but the right way that, I'll use the phrase, the most beneficial way for an organization like ours to support some of these concerns you're describing.
I think there's the reminder of how instant the internet is.
That's great.
And how it's forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 58 years old. If I went out with my friends when I was 15 or 16 years old into downtown Naperville and hung out with my friends, and we did something dumb, it wasn't a forever moment that was captured on the internet and will forever affect our lives. Right? Now, if you're a 16-year-old and you say something, do something dumb, it's captured on the internet by a friend who maybe you didn't even know was recording you.
Yep.
It gets put out on their Snapchat or their social media, and it goes viral. Your life is affected forever. And that's the scary thing about this stuff. And that happens over and over again in this community.
Yeah.
And it's been happening for a long time.
Yeah.
So that part's very scary to me. And I just hope that as parents, we have those talks with our kids about how instant and permanent this stuff is, because there is this feeling out there of, oh, I want to be an influencer, or I want to be this or that, and I want to make all this money very quickly. Well, it happens very rarely, first of all.
Yep.
But more times than not, somebody's going to do something a little bit more outrageous to try to get more followers on their social media channels. And maybe that's something that they don't want to be thinking about 10, 15 years from now when they're trying to undo it, right?
100%.
So that's
what I hear
the
you
scary
saying,
thing.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is it's important for organizations like ours where kids have a community, where there's a multi-generational aspect to what we do every Sunday, every Wednesday, every Tuesday, that it's important for folks to lean into these conversations. I think especially the ability to help remind folks that like the protective instinct there is about what their lives look like 20, 30, 40 years down the line, but also to not be afraid to just be upfront about, hey, I saw this thing. I don't know if you're participating in it or not, but I want to make sure you understand the consequences of if you did. Because I think there's to avoid, as you described earlier, that surprise moment that some parents will have. One of the things that I'm encouraged about, because I've heard you speak about this, and I really appreciated the ways in which you owned this being a product in Naperville. Like you said, it's everywhere, but a product in Naperville that we need to address. We need to own up to the idea that these are Naperville kids.
Yep.
One of the things that encourages me in not just this, but in any of the challenges we face is the amount of faith communities in Naperville. This is a place where we have, it's not quite a church on every corner, but we have faith communities everywhere. How does that benefit you, or why is that so important for your office?
Well, I think in every community, having these resources available through the faith community, especially, and an outlet for kids to be involved in something that's gives them a little bit of social responsibility.
Yeah, that's good.
Where they don't necessarily want to have to disappoint. I think disappointing mom and dad's one thing, but disappointing people that you respect in your church community, or potentially a coach if you're in athletics, or maybe it's a music teacher if you're into music. That's a whole different set of criteria that I think if those systems are in place, it makes it a little bit more difficult, I think, for kids to really just not have the resources that they potentially need. I mean, it's very hard to admit I did something to mom and dad, but if I can admit I did something to somebody who's an influence for me at church, or even a coach, now I've got a resource to talk to. And those people also become the responsible folks that they have to look up to, and maybe think twice about embarrassing later on, or having 100%. To apologize to later on.
Absolutely.
In the case of one of these teen takeovers we had this past summer, we had a 14-year-old Naperville boy arrested with a Glock pistol in his waistband. And that's a really scary thing. I mean, of course, that stuff does happen. We're the third largest city in the state of Illinois.
Right.
So when you have over 153,000 residents, I mean, the possibilities for that stuff to happen are
just math.
Absolutely. We're not in a bubble. This is not Disney World, right?
Yep. Nice.
But we have to be cognizant of those situations, and as a community, we have to understand that part of our job is to make sure we have as much outreach to take care of everyone in this community, not just those that sleep in our homes at night.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? It's looking out for the kids down the street, or the neighbor who might be sick, or something super important to me. Maybe the neighbor down the street that's got a child who's bipolar. I mean, there's a lot of concern about mental health in this city, which there is in every community.
Yeah,
Naperville has certainly got its fair share, and we have to be cognizant of how important it is to look out for each other. Yeah,
I'm really glad you said that. I often say around Good Shepherd, we're a church with resources, and therefore it's a responsibility. we have a different responsibility than the church down the road that has 20, 30 people, or a religious organization that's a different faith and Christianity down the road that has a smaller group of people. We have resources here, and we have a responsibility to then help contribute to the flourishing of our community. And, when I think about what our team that is devoted to all families is able to do, between our preschool or our disability ministry that helps every child feel like they can belong, or our kids with VBS, or our students, our students are doing this very simple thing where they just are getting together on a regular basis over the summer to just try to keep some of that connective tissue.
Right.
And it helps kids feel like they have someone who's looking out for them. And like you said, it helps provide outlets for everything from mental health to something physical to something happening at home, for those kids to keep knowing that there's other folks looking into them. It's what I want for my kids. It's why I'm so grateful to be a part of this church. It's because I know my kids are not just going to be looking at my wife and I for influence, but I know that there's people around them that I would trust with any of the challenges that are coming their way. I want to begin to land the plane here because you've already been very generous with your time. So I have two more questions.
Sure.
Churches like ours, I think we like to talk about being for our neighbors. We like to talk about being for our community. But there's a difference between the conversation that happens here on a Sunday morning, where we all kind of get to pat ourselves on the back, and living it out. Now, we do what we can with serving with Loaves and Fishes or serving with Hesed House, some of these amazing community, Naperville-rooted partners. But when you hear a church, any church, talk about being for our community, how can we show that support week in, week out, day in, day out, rather than just being something we kind of, say on a Sunday morning and then don't live out?
Well, I think you set it up really well. I mean, what we do when we leave church is the beginning.
Turns out that's actually
of
church.
The job.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we show up at home and we realize that, hey, maybe we haven't seen that neighbor for a while, or something might be going on over at this house with a person who we've heard through the grapevine is sick. What are we doing about that? Mm-hmm. Are we offering to be a resource for them? Or maybe, hey, can we take your kids to school for you for a couple of days while you get over what's going on? Or more importantly, for folks, again, we talk about the mental health challenges. I love this example which one of our former police social workers always set up. He said, Scott, when somebody has cancer, we set up a food train, we shovel the driveway, we mow the lawn. But when the neighbor down the street diagnosed with mental illness, or has a child diagnosed with a mental illness challenge like bipolar or something else, addiction maybe, we shy away. We don't go there. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're both situations that need help.
Yeah.
And they need support, and they need resources. And it's our role as good neighbors and people of faith to extend that hand, and whatever outreach we possibly can to let them know that they're loved, they're supported, and they're not being judged. So the rumor mill doesn't help. What helps is people who have the guts to care and do something about it. That's what helps.
As tempted as I am to end the conversation there for the wonderful message there, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, just to let you have the last word. Is there anything you'd like to share with this community specifically, but for the folks who've been listening, particularly listening all the way to the end,
sure,
about what it looks like to actually be for our neighbors, and in this case, be for Naperville?
I think when you have a community of this relevance, of this size, that's voted best this, best that, there are so many different ways that you can help each other. And in the city as a whole, I mean, it extends from those visits and understanding your neighbors and your neighborhood and your friend group, and maybe being the person to say, hey, whatever this thread is on social media right now is turning into more of a rumor mongering than it is a help. Maybe we should put an end to this and start thinking about how we can help somebody versus talking about them.
Yeah.
all the way to supporting the services that help some of our families in need, like our food banks, as well as the social and the mental health service organizations here in town. I mean, it's the gamut, and I think it's wide open and it's all ages. So kids can be a part of that. We have a program that we launched. Unfortunately, I've lost some friends to suicide over the course of my life, and one of the things I found in one of those dark times for me was, how do I find something positive out of this particular tragedy? When I'm sitting there at that funeral and I'm watching his family go through all this stuff and I'm crying with all my friends, what are we going to do positive? And my first day in office as mayor, I brought in 25 different mental health providers and our public safety folks, and I said, we got a problem. We've got to start doing something about it. So one of the first things we did was we created this program called Unlocking Hope. It's basically a suicide disruptor program for high school age kids. And over the course of an hour and a half, we give them the tools to potentially disrupt a friend who might reach out to them contemplating suicide.
Yeah.
And the scary part about the class for me so far, we've done, I think, 3 or 4 different classes. I think we've trained over 100 kids so far. We always start out by saying, has anybody in your life ever told you that they're thinking about killing themselves? And in every class we've done, 95% of the kids raise their hand. And these are kids between the ages of 14 and 17 years old. That's tough.
Yeah.
But when they exit that class, and I every time we've had one of these classes, I've been to every one of them. The kids are thankful. And what's even better is they're thirsty. They want to take more class, like youth mental health first aid and all these other types of opportunities that we offer through different groups here in town.
We offer that here.
Because they want to be a resource for their friends.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real testament to just one of the ways that people of all ages can get involved in being good citizens, good people of faith, and hopefully make some real differences in the world.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time. Thank you for doing something about it. And for everybody listening, we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you for listening to the Encounter Faith podcast. This podcast is a service of G. Shep Productions from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Naperville, Illinois. All rights reserved. If you're in the area, we'd love to meet you on a Sunday morning at our 9 a.m. or 10:45 services. At Good Shepherd, we are inviting everyone to walk together in the calling of Christ for a life of eternal impact. This podcast is produced and hosted by me, Ross Cochran, and our theme song is Wake the Earth by 1111 Worship. Thank you for listening. We'll talk again soon.